This is Abuja, the capital of Nigeria, and the epicenter of that election taking place here today. Well, it has been postponed once before and is said to be one of the closest races in Nigeria's democratic history. Well, at 60% of the population, there's one demographic that could be a deciding factor in this election. So just how important is the younger generation in Nigeria's election? I'm Beatrice Marshall. Welcome to Talk Africa. Well, here in Abuja, the atmosphere is expectant. 68.8 million registered voters are going to the polls today to make their decision. Well, Penina Karibe is standing by for us to tell us exactly who these voters are. Penina?
Thanks, Beatrice. So, as we've heard, Nigerians trooped to the polls today to pick their new leader in an election that has been billed as the tightest race in the country's democratic history. Turnout is expected to be high, with more than 68 million registered voters lining up to cast their ballot. The election pits incumbent President Goodluck Jonathan of the People's Democratic Party against Muhammadu Buhari, a former military ruler running on an all-progressive Congress ticket. But the big question is, can Nigeria's youth determine the outcome of this election? While this remains unclear for now, the numbers show that Nigeria's youth have the power to potentially chart the country's political future. Nigeria's population stands at 173.6 million, according to 2013 World Bank and United States Census Bureau figures. Now, 60% of these are youth aged between 15 and 34 years. The figures further reveal that those between 25 to 54 years of age make up 30% of the population. Unemployment makes this election a particularly high-stakes one for the Nigerian youth. The World Bank puts unemployment in Nigeria at 22% and youth unemployment at 38%. The social, economic and political implications for Nigeria of an idle youth could be far-reaching, which is why youth has been a major campaign issue in this presidential contest. Now, a bit later, Beatrice will be chatting to some of Nigeria's youth leaders to find out their take on the country's future. But first, we sent CCTV's Sophia Dengo onto the streets of Abuja to find out more about what life is like as a young person in Africa's most populous nation.
Saturday will be a big day for Samson Ejiofor. His first chance to have a say in who runs Nigeria. He plans to make the most of it.
I believe in my vote because as one person, I can, with one vote, which is mine vote, can put whichever person I want to be there, and I can vote out anybody that I think cannot make the change which I feel will be suitable to me as a citizen. I can use my vote and vote out the person and put in the person I want.
A recent graduate, Samson struggled to make a living, but gets by with his small tailoring shop in the capital, Abuja. Many Nigerians his age find no work at all. Nigeria's population is predominantly young. 40 million of them are unemployed. Most of them now looking at Saturday's vote as a chance to be heard and a chance to contribute to Nigeria's growth.
Young people, you discover that more than 60% of Nigeria, which is a nation, are more of young people. If the next government can look into this youth and being able to empower them and give them something to do, they will come out of the fact that they'll be depending on the government to do something for them, to be able to give them something. But right now, they'll be able to create something with their hands and be able to contribute to the nation for the growing and for the expansion of the nation.
The president has been targeting the youth vote, promising to create 2 million jobs a year and offering empowerment schemes for young entrepreneurs and graduates. His arch-rival, too, is promising jobs. Whether those promises can hold is another matter. But for now, millions of young Nigerians like Samson Ejiofor have a big chance in coming days to determine their future. Sophia Dengo, CCTV, Abuja, Nigeria.
Well, both sides in this contest are exuding confidence that their candidates will emerge victorious. Well, earlier I spoke to the PDP's Olise Metu. He talked about his party's chances in the coming elections. Are you completely satisfied with the way the electoral process has gone so far?
Yes, we are. We are satisfied. We are completely satisfied with what INEC is doing, because when we raised concerns, INEC has been able to address most of them. We raised concerns on the distribution of the PVCs, the fact that non-indigens were not allowed, were being denied that. INEC investigated and sacked some of their staff that participated in that. We are satisfied because when we raised issues and concerns on the card reader, INEC has been able to bring these incident forms and to ensure that in all the polling booths there will be at least 200 to 250 incident forms to protect in case the card reader fails or a lot of people don't get to be their thumbprints and everything. If it doesn't work, the incident forms will protect it. We are satisfied because we have seen that Nigerians will protect the electoral process.
There are concerns in the region, across the continent, about possible electoral violence. Is that a concern for your party at all?
We were concerned. We are still a bit, but we must give kudos to, we must acknowledge the efforts of the Peace Committee led by the former head of state, General Abdul Salam, the Sultan of Sokoto, the Archbishop of Abuja, Cardinal Onaikon, Bishop Reverend Kuka, and a lot of other people, Justice Ukeje. They've done so much to bring down this tension. And the accord that was signed between the two parties and their presidential candidates is really affected the psyche of the people to ensure that people do not take laws into their hands.
In the event that the PDP does not receive an outright majority, would you be willing to consider going into a coalition, for instance?
No, the system that we run does not give room for coalition parties. We have two main political parties, so one of them will win, and we know we will win. We will win because our president has done so much that has affected all sectors of the economy: agriculture, transport, education, health, all facets of the economy. And where he has run a credible campaign based on issues.
So what does the future look like for Nigeria according to the youth? Well, that's what we are discussing here today, and I'm joined now by Cynthia Mbamalu. She is with the Youth Initiative for Advocacy, Growth and Advancement. Thank you very much for being on the program. Kingsley Bangwell, he's youth leader at the Young Stars Foundation, and Stephen Osadebai, he's the youth leader from the Youth and Women Mobilization Network. To you all, thank you very much for being on the program. Cynthia, I'll start off with you now. Nigeria's population is estimated at about 170 million. 60% of that are the youth. What is the youth perception, though, of this current election and the youth agenda moving forward?
Well, I think basically because young people constitute a larger chunk of the population. I know before 2015 we didn't have this level of youth awareness and this level of youth consciousness and participation in the electoral process, and I think that's an improvement from what we had before, because in 2015 we see more young people getting politically conscious. So you see on social media platforms, for instance, people debating and arguing on different issues of which party to vote for and what issues they want to promote in the electoral process. And I think young people are beginning to understand that they have a stake when it comes to governance and democratic processes in general. And why is that? I mean, you want to look at where we're coming from. You want to look at the present status quo, our present realities, and you notice more young people are more more the victim when it comes to the challenges of the socioeconomic challenges. See, more young people are victims in that. And if you want to look at also the political
I'll just jump in there and ask that, of course, to Kingsley there. Do you feel like the young people are now getting a bit more involved in Nigeria's electoral process and, you know, the governance of Nigeria moving forward?
Yeah, we've seen tremendous leap. In 2007, during the election, we were among the few youth groups in the country who were involved in mobilizing young people to get involved in the political space. And I could say we're among the few. And then we saw significant improvement in 2011. And now you're seeing several youth organizations across the country getting involved, asking questions, mobilizing their peers to go register and getting into conversations around...
But where is this all, though, taking the youth in the country?
Yeah, what we're now seeing is an increase in youth political participation. For the first time, we're seeing an increased number of young people coming out to run for office. It's always been about young people coming out to vote, but now we're seeing an increasing number of young people say, we want to run for office, we want to be at the policy table, we want to contribute to policy, we want to be sure that our issues are mainstream, not just about tokenism, but because we are also part of the people making those decisions at the table. Right. So for me, if you ask me, it's a huge positive step in the right direction.
Stephen?
I just want to say this is a time for the youth where there's a positive attitude and mindset this election, and the youth are probably aware of every situation in the political reforms, and now they are about to start up the reform by being the forerunner of this election. So the youths are very, very aware, and they are ready to see that this election goes free and fair.
Do you think, though, that at 60% of the population, though, the youth vote will make a difference in this election?
Yes, the youth will make a difference this time because we're not those kind of youths anymore. We have built our kind of attitude towards to contribute. We have developed our attitude to contribute to the country. So we must be politically orientated in this. So we are all ready. You can see most of us are going to be the one mobilizing, going to be the one supervising. We're all involved in this election.
Although, sorry, I just wanted to jump in to say, in 2011, INEC came out to say that a huge percentage of the people that registered and went out to vote were young people. I mean, the numbers may not be very specific, although in 2015, based on the PVC and the card readers, INEC is going to be able to give more empirical data in terms of the number of young people, the age bracket and all of that. But I can say this, that young people have always gone out to vote. But what I can say is that young people have not always been united in terms of who they want to vote for. But in 2015, we've seen an effort to see if we can mobilize young people around issues and not around candidates. Because generally, based on the religious and ethnic sentiments, young people want to vote and block in view of those sentiments. But what we're trying to do is to get young people to say, it's not about the party, it's not about religion, but it's about the issues. Who is going to look at education and give it more, portfolio in the budget? Who is going to look at health? Who's going to look at employment and all of that? We're trying to see that happen.
All right. Kingsley, of course, this is just an election and it's just an electoral process. But to really make a difference, the youth have to be involved in matters of governance. Are Nigeria's youth involved at all in any level of governance?
Well, if you ask me, democracy is just building in Nigeria. There was a gap, there was a stoppage of democracy when the military truncated it, and so we've had long military rule. So technically this is like a return to democracy where we're trying to build the institution, where we're trying to imbibe the cultures of democratic governance. If you ask me, for the emerging generation, for our generation, it's completely new. Our generation is yet to understand that just beyond just going out to exercise your franchise and vote, that you can be at a policy table, you can be in elective office. But like I said, we've seen an increase in that, but we haven't really attained youth inclusion. And then even at the economic level, if you look at the present cabinet of the government, you want to check out to see how many people are under the age of 35 that are handling a portfolio. Right? I mean, those are strategic indices to show whether young people have really got into that kind of leadership space where we can influence policy on issues that truly affect us. We haven't seen that. Even the Ministry of Youth, we do not have a young person as a minister. And there's been outcry from young people asking government to say, even if you can't give a youth minister in any of the agencies, the Ministry of Youth should be run by a young person under 35, and if you want to stretch, possibly under 40. We haven't seen that happen. But I think these are the kind of agitations that are coming out of our growing democratic space. One thing I can say is that we are seeing more young people now beginning to demand, and not just demand, beginning to engage, and even engaging at the policy level to see how we can redefine policy to make it mandatory for youth to be mainstream in these processes.
Yeah. I think just to add to that, because we want to also look at our legal framework. Yes. And presently, the Constitution actually limits and restricts youth participation. So, for instance, to run for the Senate House, you need to be 35 years. To be a president, you need to be 40. To even head the INEC, the Electoral Commission, you need to be 40 years. And then to run for the House of Representatives or House of Assembly in the state, you need to be 30 years. So that means if you're not up to 30, you cannot aspire to run for these offices. And these constitutional restrictions have reduced and limited the level of youth participation. So I know when we were in the constitutional review process, we were actively engaging that, and that was one part of our proposal. How can we reduce and open up the space to ensure that more young people contest and run for offices, and also to even have like a youth policy, not just a national youth policy like we have, but something that makes it mandatory for political parties. No, now we have a gender policy, for instance, so that within political parties themselves they have youth wings, because now we don't have institutionalized youth wings within political parties. So you don't have a young person at the executive office in political parties. So if we can have a youth policy that makes it mandatory for political parties to create a quota system or an affirmative action for young people within parties, now that opens up the space. Then let's have some sort of concessions, because to run for office you need to have so much money, and most young people can afford that amount of money. So some sort of concessions for young people. Then also for the Constitution, how can we review that law to open up the space? Age shouldn't determine capacity and shouldn't determine capability. Age should just be something that is there to just be something that just adds up to your biodata.
And of course that brings us to the argument that looking at the main two contenders, of course I know this is not about the political opponents, but looking at the main two contenders, they're both over 50. Yeah. What's the perception of the youth about this?
In 2011, there was a conversation around the age. There was a perception that, well, one of the candidates then was younger and to an extent represented, younger generation. But again, I think young people are beginning to ask the question between age and performance, right? And someone says age in itself does not even define experience. The aged may not be as wise as a younger person, and sometimes a younger person may not be as wise as the aged. So I think for us, we are beginning to say beyond the age, we want to look at pedigree, we want to look at capacity, we want to look at competence, we want to look at who can deliver the democratic dividends, who can deliver democratic governance value, who can deliver development that spreads across both young people, the aged, and the middle class. Eventually, I think the conversation is driving around that it will be an advantage if you have a younger person at the helm of affairs. But if you have a younger person at the helm of affairs who does not eventually mainstream young people, and our condition and our welfare has not improved, then it raises question. So I think for me it's about performance. Yeah.
Stephen, is that your perception as well?
Yeah, it's I'll key to him, because I believe if we have the positive attitude, we're not looking at the age, we're looking at the mindset and attitude, because you can have a good job, but if you don't have the attitude, the positive attitude, you can't keep that job. So we're looking at a leader that can have that mindset to maximize the system, because there's no way the youth can maximize their potential in the system where the wrong leader has been chosen. So I believe this time is when we can choose our right leader, a right leader that have the mindset to lead the country. Because if we have a right leader that has a good mindset and good attitude, then the system becomes open.
We're in Abuja this week. We'll take a short break now, but we'll be back with more from Nigeria's youth after this.
It might be Africa's biggest economy, but Nigeria will be facing one of its biggest challenges this year.
Now its people have their chance to make a difference.
Millions go to the polls on 28th March.
Will Goodluck Jonathan win again?
Or will his rivals manage to unseat him?
You'll find the answers right here at CCTV Africa. We'll bring you all the drama as it unfolds.
From the campaign trail to the voting, the counting, and the final results. Unrivaled coverage, and it begins this week on CCTV Africa, your African news channel.
Welcome back to Talk Africa. Well, there has been a lot of emphasis in the build-up to this election on the vote of the under 30. We sent Deji Badmus out on the streets to find out why.
But I think there needs to be a change in the citizens' mindset just because we build the country. So if we are not evolving as a people, then our country cannot evolve. So if we evolve as a people that hold our government accountable, and we evolve as a people that are more conscious of the things that are going on in our country and in the world and how it relates to us, then we're more likely to impact change in the country as a whole.
We need to encourage good governance, we need to encourage transparency, we need to encourage credibility, we need to encourage accountability. Most of our leaders are not accountable.
Corruption is not going to disappear overnight. It's something that Nigeria has been fighting with for a very long time. But we need someone who has the willingness to make sure that, you know, the rule of law thrives in Nigeria. So that would really be the most important thing. Someone that who would have the will to fight and to ensure that security is paramount, and that basically what Nigerians are hoping for, we have our education system improved, our healthcare system improved, and, you know, basic infrastructure.
The leadership question needs to be answered, and this is what this election actually provides: an opportunity for citizens to evaluate where we're coming from and say, do we want to continue with this kind of leadership, or we want to change the kind of leadership? I think both candidates and all the candidates from the other political parties have stand a chance.
I'm eager to vote because I know my vote will count, because I see myself as a change, someone who is going to the next generation of elite, political elite.
All right, and of course, Cynthia, we've looked at what the youth want in Nigeria. What are the youth's biggest challenges?
Our biggest challenge is, first, is non-inclusion in the political space, decision-making processes, because that is where your voices get cut out if you're not part of the decision-making process. Second, we have several socio-economic challenges. One, education and job opportunities. Now, why is education important? Because now the strength of a nation is based on human capital, and if you have so many young people, I mean, these days you can't go to university for 4 years and expect to graduate within 4 years, because most people spend more than 4 years for a course of 4 years in the university. And then you want to look at the quality of education. So you see, for instance, we even say giving priority to certificates that come from outside, while we have big, strong universities within the country. So education, to me, is key. Then issues of security. Now, why security? Because if we don't have security, then even businesses can't run. People can't function. There's no stability in the system. So security, education, very important to us. And inclusion in politics. Then the issue when it comes to, I always want to emphasize on power supply. Now, why is the power supply? Because now we are promoting social entrepreneurship. Young people want them to become entrepreneurs. But you can't grow a business where you have to spend half of your resources on to provide power for yourself. So if you can't tackle that, even businesses will fold up. Businesses will fold. So young people that are innovative and industrious, for instance, they have an environment that is not as enabling as it ought to be. So to me, these elections, we should look at strategies that provide adequate quality education for people, job opportunities for people, security, power, and an enabling environment for businesses to grow and thrive.
All right, Kingsley?
Well, rather than list all of that, I will just speak to an issue that I think is underlying, and that's corruption. Because even if you have a great policy that is fostering job, if you have a great policy that is going to come out with a roadmap to eventually giving us 10,000 megawatts of electricity and all of this policy, but yet you have endemic corruption, then it undermines everything. Because a lot of things Cynthia has said are part of the current agenda of this government, and they are well laid out plan. They look articulate, they look fantastic. We've always had amazing policy as a nation, so that's not been a problem. But the problem has been endemic corruption, where you vote money for education and that resource is cornered by another group. You vote money for road construction, is cornered. So we have endemic corruption. And I keep saying it anyway. If we have a government that fixes corruption and doesn't even add any other new innovation, our system as it is right now, if it runs without corruption, we are going to leapfrog the development.
If you look at these policies, you'll be talking about empowerment, unemployment. But because of the kind of government we run, we're not self-sufficient. If you check in the people contesting, you find that no youth are there because we don't have the money. We always depend on the older one to sponsor or to support us politically. But if we are self-sufficient, if the government have provide policies that can improve the empowerment of the youth, we don't need much. All we need is just soft loans to develop our ideas.
We're also looking, though, at the high numbers of youth unemployment here. And what Stephen, though, is saying is that if we can be self-sufficient, then perhaps we can be able to make those sorts of decisions. So what then is going to happen? What role do you see the youth playing, though, in securing this country, given the fact that you know you have the numbers?
Well, if you ask me, we're already seeing a momentum where young people are beginning to speak out. Beyond just social media has its real positive traction because it's becoming a strong platform to blow, as a whistleblower tool and all of that. We are seeing that, but beyond that social media, some call it clickibism community, right? There is real work that is going on. Young people are organizing themselves. We are better understanding the issues. We are beginning to look at policies. We're beginning to look at governance. We're beginning to look at ministries. And we're beginning to raise questions. For the first time, youth groups, young people are beginning to ask government questions and beginning to request for budgetary information. Recently, there was a contract on cyber. There was a cyber contract of about $40 million. A youth organization wrote to the federal government under the Freedom of Information Act saying, can we see the contract document? We want to see the TOR, the term of reference and all of that. We are beginning to see more young people making this kind of demand. These are things that were never thought about in the last 3-4 years. So what I can say is that this is building, and you're going to see this seriously increase in the next government. After this election, young people are going to, I won't be surprised if young people even ask most of the political parties to come public with their financial expenditure on the election and make that public. That awareness is growing. I can tell you it's only going to get better.
Just flowing from that, first it begins from the voting process, so you need to have more young people go out and vote in mass. Now aside from that, just flowing from him is holding government officials more accountable. So from the elections, what plans do we have as young people? So we will just focus on the executive, for instance. We have the National Assembly, we have the state houses of assembly, and the constitution gives us the power of recall. So when we see parliamentarians not performing, it's time to start exercising our rights in the constitution to start recalling some of the parliamentarians. There's nothing wrong in us pushing the parliament for impeachment of a governor or the president if the president does not perform. Now that is what is democracy. That is testing democracy, having citizens become more active, more informed, and more engaging. And I think that's what young people, that is the plan. I know so much is already happening, and thank God for the FOI Act that we have, because we're going to start demanding accountability from our government, from the institutions, and anyone that's not ready to work. If it means citizens' action within the ambits of the law, we'll do that, because democracy is here to stay.
I actually think that the next 4 years of Nigerian democracy is going to be quite interesting. So whoever is winning that election better get ready for a more vibrant, active, questioning and demanding youth community.
All right, Cynthia Mbamalu, youth leader with the Youth Initiative for Advocacy, Growth and Advancement, Kingsley Bangwell at the Youngsters Foundation, and Stephen Osadebeyi, youth leader from the Youth and Women Mobilization Network. It's been a very insightful discussion here in Abuja. Thank you very much for being on Talk Africa. We leave it there for the moment. This is Talk Africa from Abuja this week. I'm Beatrice Marshall. Goodbye.